Leaders once thought the Russian economy unshakable, but a crisis might change its future. The country that once dominated global markets is now in the midst of a perfect economic storm, a convergence of pressures so powerful that even the most experienced observers are unsure what will happen. Russia's central bank dropped its key interest rate to 16.5% for the fourth time since June. It may seem like a deliberate move to stabilize the economy, but structural problems and political struggles imply something more sinister is happening. The move to decrease rates may look like hope for firms and industries choked by excessive borrowing costs. However, the truth is very different. Loans are still too expensive at 16.5%, thus the measure is cost-effective. International sanctions and geopolitical upheaval have destroyed Russia's investment climate and foreign interest. Thus, this is not a growth-boosting strategy. It symbolizes a system with few possibilities. Behind these economic developments is a heated internal conflict. Russia is led by two major factions that compete for power. Liberals, technocrats who manage the economy, favor pragmatic, market-oriented solutions. Hawks, military-industrial complex officials, prioritize military operations over economic damage. Policy decisions are reactive due to this tug of conflict. Hawks have continuously lobbied the central bank for lower rates to support military projects, while economic officials know excessive easing risks collapsing an already frail economy. The government is trapped between priorities, with every decision introducing new vulnerabilities. Internal economic burden is not all. Russia faces enormous external pressures. The country's capital market access is hampered by international sanctions. Europe can borrow cheaply and rely on private investors to fuel growth, while Russia has witnessed capital flight to foreign and domestic markets. Fearing rising risks, investors have withdrew their funds, leaving Russian enterprises reliant on costly domestic bank loans. Lack of local and international investment has created a vacuum that makes economic stagnation unavoidable. Russia's failure to utilize industrial output exacerbates stagnation. Exporters cannot sell fossil fuels, metals, and manufactured equipment due to sanctions. Similar disruptions may be irritating for European countries, but for Russia, whose economy relies on exports, they are catastrophic. The restrictions have dramatically reduced capital and revenue, reducing enterprises' ability to function or expand. Russia faces a perfect storm. High interest rates, frozen investment, trade restrictions, and dwindling workforce. Crisis has a devastating human cost. About 3 million Russian men have fled the country for safety or opportunity, while another million are on the front lines or have been killed in military actions. This is an abrupt loss of nearly 5% of the active labor force, unprecedented in contemporary European economic history. Rapid workforce reduction stifles productivity and damages the labor market, economists say. Russia's economy is bleeding resources at a time when it can least afford it due to fewer workers in industrial, service, and military production. It's the worst timing. Ukrainian military operations are targeting Russian supply chains and crucial infrastructure, putting pressure on the economy. Domestically, enterprises struggle to get inexpensive finance. Global marketplaces are closed to them. Inflation persists, driving the central bank into an unattainable balance. Raising rates too high destroys domestic industries, lowering them too low causes inflation. A system in a self-reinforcing downward spiral makes each policy decision exacerbate the situation. Analysts call Russia's economic tsunami a cascade of causes creating an unparalleled crisis. No shock-absorbing system remains. Due to strong markets and various investment sources, European countries can tolerate temporary capital flight, moderate inflation, and labor shortages. Russia lacks safety nets. Sanctions, labor shortages, high interest rates, military spending, and capital flight create a perfect storm that sends the economy into freefall. This storm will impact every sector. High financing costs and low investment are choking civil industry. The military-industrial complex, vital to Russia's strategic objectives, lacks capital for manufacturing and research. Consumer confidence is plummeting due to higher expenses and fewer jobs. These forces make economic stagnation imminent. Analysts expect even minor policy changes to have little effect because structural issues are too ingrained to reverse. Also significant are the political ramifications. Economic forces of this size always affect politics. Kremlin factions may deepen their power battle, blaming each other for worsening conditions. Unrest could result from public unhappiness over lengthy military conflicts and financial difficulties. With the country's economy failing, the leadership may have to take desperate steps to keep control, disrupting the system. All aspects of Russian life are influenced by the financial, political, social, and strategic storm. International observers assert that mitigating the storm requires addressing its sources. Economic recovery is impossible without eliminating sanctions, restoring trade, and stabilizing the labor force. To achieve these solutions, political choices and the conclusion of armed conflicts are required. The analysts believe that any changes in the economy will only be superficial and temporary solutions, failing to address the fundamental problems until the war's end and Russia is reintegrated into global trade networks. History offers almost no analogies. Recessions, inflation, and political crises have all occurred in Europe, but nothing like capital flight, labor shortages, sanctions, or prolonged conflicts have ever occurred in the region. The situation in Russia is peculiar because it involves mismanagement on the internal front, pressures from the outside world, and strategic overreach. Economists warn that it is nearly impossible to anticipate the trajectory due to everyday shocks and compounding effects. There is one thing that can be said with absolute certainty: the nation is about to enter unknown territory, with existential stakes and very little room for error. The consequences are severe on a global scale. The economic turmoil Russia is experiencing will impact energy, commodities, and international investment. Countries that are dependent on Russia are experiencing supply disruptions, and investors all over the world are watching with alarm as the level of uncertainty increases. There are other storms than the one in Russia. The effects of geopolitics and economics transcend beyond the borders of the country. An ideal economic storm is brewing in Russia, which poses a threat to the country's political, social, and financial systems. High interest rates, money that is fleeing the country, sanctions from other countries, a shrinking workforce, and the costs associated with the conflict have all contributed to a situation that even seasoned analysts have difficulty comprehending. Rate reduction and other legislative actions only provide a superficial level of help. If the country does not implement significant political and economic reforms, it will be doomed to stagnation, worldwide decline, and a calamity that has the potential to alter its future. Simultaneously, the Russian central bank is rapidly exhausting its available resources. Every decision is crucial, every mistake intensifies, and the storm shows no signs of abating. The only thing that can be said with absolute certainty is that the next few months will be crucial for Russia and the global system it supports.